Hello, everyone. Welcome back to RAID Virtual. It's great to be here with Elizabeth Kelly, the Director of the US AI Safety Institute. Thanks, Elizabeth, for joining us today. Great to see you again.
Thanks so much for having me. Excited to be back.
Yeah, well, when I last saw you, when you last spoke at RAID, actually was at in Brussels at RAID Brussels in last September, and you were in a different role then. You were working for the White House at that stage, and now you're in a completely different role, which just shows how fast things are moving in this field. So now you've set up this US AI Safety Institute. Why was it established, and what are your main areas of focus right now, Elizabeth?
Sure. So let me give a little bit of backstory. So you're right that I was in a completely different role at the White House, but my job at the White House was helping craft the president's executive order on artificial intelligence, which I think came out about 6 weeks after I spoke to you all in September. And I think it's useful to think about the EO in three buckets. One is how to spur further innovation, like building a talent pipeline, more money for R&D. How to regulate applications of AI, where we take a vertical approach, leveraging existing authorities, like the regulatory authorities of financial services regulators or healthcare regulators. And the last bucket, which I think relates to our conversation today, is how do we approach the underlying frontier large language models, the GPT-4, the Claude 3, that power all of these applications. And that's really where the AI Safety Institute fits in and what my job is today. We were sort of a creature of the executive order and were announced by the vice president just 2 days after the EO came out. Our goal at the USAI Safety Institute, which is housed at the National Institute of Standard Technology, or NIST, at the Department of Commerce, is really to advance the science and adoption of AI safety, focused on those underlying frontier models. We've had a busy few months. The EO gave us a lot of homework. I admittedly gave myself some homework. Um, and so we've been focused on fulfilling those taskings, providing a generative AI update for the AI risk management framework, guidelines for red teaming, and many more. And actually, just yesterday, published initial public drafts of all of those documents on which we'd welcome everyone's engagement and feedback as we move towards final. But what we're really focused on doing is how do we build the Safety Institute as a long-term asset for the country and for the world? How do we advance safety, which in turn aids trust and adoption, which in turn spurs innovation, which is really what motivates all of us. And there's four key pillars to our work at the Safety Institute. One, we are working on testing of AI models directly. We're going to build out a suite of evaluations that we can use as data on how AI models perform, what their capabilities are, what risks are posed by these capabilities. It's an entirely new government capability to directly test frontier AI models before deployment across a range of risks, and something we're really excited about. We're also putting out a lot of guidance, both guidance for evaluations that should be done both prior to and post deployment of these models, as well as guidance on what safety and security mitigation should look like. It's not enough to say, okay, we've tested a model, we've identified this potential risk, this opportunity for misuse. We really need to say, this is the mitigation that might be effective. How do we evaluate the efficacy of these mitigations, knowing that these are evolving so quickly and the science is still very uncertain. We're also very focused on synthetic content. So how do we put out guidance around what robust and reliable watermarking looks like? How do we actually detect inauthentic content? These are some of our key pillars of work and a lot more to come in the coming months.
Well, that's quite a lot to be getting on with, Elizabeth. Very challenging and important work indeed. And I also know that international relationships are another area of focus for you. And that's why we launched RAID, of course, as a forum for regulators and policymakers from different jurisdictions to share ideas. And from what you're saying there, it sounds like there's a lot of commonality and overlap between Europe, for example, with the AI Act. How would you describe the US approach to AI regulation as compared to the European Union's, for example? Where are those points of interoperability and where are the points of difference?
So you're absolutely right, Ben, that I think international engagement is a huge pillar and priority for us. We think it's absolutely essential that we have safety institutes and similar regulators across the globe aligned on what interoperable testing can look like, what should standards be, because only by working together can we really level the playing field and make sure that we're advancing the science of AI safety. And we've already seen a remarkable amount of global alignment. You can see that even in the timing. In 1 week last November, the US announced their executive order, MMO at the Bletchley Park Summit in the UK. The G7 put out their code of conduct, and just 1 month later, the EU concluded trialogues on the AI Act. And I do think there is a lot of alignment. There's also some key differences. One, most basically, is that the EU was doing legislation, whereas ours is regulation. We went to the full extent of our executive authorities, but obviously there are some constraints that comes with that. So I think the EU was able to take a much more horizontal approach to regulation of these technology, both at the foundation model level, as well as for applications of AI, and especially in high risk settings. Whereas we had to take sort of a more voluntary horizontal approach at the foundation model level, putting out guidelines, urging compliance, while taking a vertical approach to the applications, letting financial services regulators, healthcare regulators, others use their existing authorities to regulate AI, making clear that there's no AI exception to the laws on the books. For the underlying foundation models, I think there's a lot of similarities between how the US and EU are thinking about this. We're very focused on emphasizing disclosure, so we're able to understand what's coming and monitor those risks, as well as encouraging robust testing and evaluation prior to deployment in order to get a handle on that. Another good example of alignment is in thinking about high-risk use cases. This is certainly a focus of the EU AI Act, and it's also a focus of something called the OMB-M memo, or the White House, the Office of Management and Budget Management memo. It's an even wonkier sibling of the executive order. But what it really does is create this framework for thinking about how government applies AI, and says that when AI is being deployed in a context that impacts rights or safety, there's a whole other set of processes, considerations, diverse user feedback that needs to be taken into account, which again has a lot of parallels with the approach the EU has taken.
Mm. Yeah, I think that there's clear needs and benefits for both horizontal and vertical approaches. Both Europe and the US and pretty much the whole world have well-established industry verticals, and those industries are all digitizing at different sort of paces and are all sort of on the march to becoming primarily technology companies in some shape or form in the way that they deliver their products and their services. And it's all on the sort of the technology development side of things. It's developing so fast right now. I mean, we had Laurent Goby from KPMG earlier on describing it as a gold rush, basically, particularly in relation to generative AI. And when I last heard you speak at Geopolitical Europe 2030, which was the conference organised by Dragos Tudorache, who spoke about an hour ago at RAID just now, I remember you were on a panel with the director of the UK AI Institute, and he was talking about the exponential development of generative AI, saying that it's doubling in computing capacity every 18 months. And about 18 months ago was when ChatGPT 3.5 first came into the public consciousness. So already it's twice as powerful as that. So exponentially things are growing. That has huge implications for for what it's going to be able to do. How concerned are you about this pace of development and the risks that might pose?
So I completely agree with you. The pace of development is indeed exponential, and we just expect that to continue in the coming years. And that's why we think the work that we're doing at the US AI Safety Institute is so incredibly important. We need to know what changes are coming. We need to be able to do the testing and evaluation to monitor and mitigate these risks. And we need to put out guidelines. So we're creating a whole community of third-party evaluators who are able to monitor these technologies. We need to prevent misuse so that we couldn't see a frontier model enable more people to conduct more effective cyber attacks or other potential dangers. But there's also huge opportunity that comes with this pace of growth. And that's the thing that I really want to underscore. We know that AI has impressive abilities to match drug targets with new molecules and treat diseases that have been seemingly intractable. We know there's lots of application in climate change. It's shown significant potential for optimizing data center cooling, helping lower emissions from air travel, improving microclimate forecasting. So really, I'm just excited for how can we channel this incredible technology into ways that improve all of our lives. And that's why I think it's so important to get through the regulatory response right in the front end.
Yeah, I mean the pace of development is extremely rapid, which brings huge opportunities. Of course, it means that we're going to be able to do more amazing things very soon, and but also there's a lot more for regulators to get their heads around. And what challenges do you think governments and the public sector institutions face in grappling with the complexity of AI? I'm speaking. I'm not an AI expert. I'm not even. I'm a journalist by background. I've been writing about technology and regulation for many years, but I struggle with a lot of it, and I'm sure a lot of people do. So, what do regulators and governments do? What can they do in terms of helping to understand basically what you need to do to get more expertise, technologically literate people into regulatory institutions, governments, and institutes like yourself, so that they can not just find out as the technology emerges, but be a step ahead and know what's coming down the line to react before, rather than just a ex ante.
So I think you really hit on something here, Ben. It's noteworthy that one of the key pillars of the executive, in addition to things like how do we think about privacy or competition, was how do we actually get talent into the federal government? And I know this is something that our EU counterparts are very focused on. What are the ways that we can get terrific folks from Silicon Valley, from PhD programs, to really come join us, because that's the only way that we are going to be able to do our jobs effectively and help shape this technology in the way that it can. And so we, explored different things like using Schedule AR authorities, IPA authorities. I could go into a bunch of wonky things, but this is a priority at the very highest levels. And we've already seen huge responses. I think within a couple of weeks of the AI.gov going up, we had 800 different applications. You're seeing new AI cores pop up at places like the Department of Homeland Security. From my perspective, we've been really amazed by the talented group of folks who are excited about joining the AI Safety Institute. We just hired a head of safety who helped build the safety team at OpenAI and then led one of the key outside evaluators and are getting top talent from a lot of the PhD programs. I think this just speaks to the incredible opportunity, as well as how public service minded so many people are. And it's both incredibly heartening and humbling, and makes for a really fun work environment.
Fantastic. Thanks very much, Elizabeth. And just as people within regulatory and government authorities are becoming more literate on sort of technology issues, I'm amazed at just how knowledgeable on the regulatory side people are within technology companies as well. When you speak to people within the Microsofts and the Metas of the world, and the IBMs that we speak to at RAID, that they're very much abreast of and informed by and driving these conversations as well to some extent. So, and some people talk about self-regulation as a possible approach here. I mean, the US is, compared to Europe, is not very well regulated, and its AI sector is thriving. Its technology sector is of course world leading. I wonder if those two things are connected, and is it wise to just let innovation run its course and trust companies to be a force for good?
So I think it's important to note that we've said all along the executive order is sort of a middle step. We started with the AI risk management framework, the AI Bill of Rights, and then we went to the full extent of our authorities using the executive order consistent with the president's directive. But we're certainly not taking legislation off the table. There are places where we know Congress needs to act, like comprehensive privacy legislation. That being said, I think we're excited by what we have been, and I believe will be able to achieve with the executive order and the more voluntary approach. NIST itself, where the AI Safety Institute is now based, has a long storied history, and you've seen uh, broad industry adoption of their risk management framework. I think this is also really unique in that you've gotten all of these companies to come together and make voluntary commitments, first to the White House, then to the G7. And so I think we're able to sort of leverage that and work in lockstep in a way that differentiates this from a lot of other areas.
Yeah, I think that's probably the answer, isn't it? To to have the regulation helping to drive the innovation forward rather than it being a tug of war between the two and hampering progress. So I think we should have another panel discussion ready to go fairly soon. But just before we end this fascinating conversation, I'd be really interested to know, Elizabeth, where you see the biggest benefits of AI emerging over the next 5 years, say, in which consumer applications or in which industries.
So on the consumer side, I think we're going to see huge growth, especially as we see the growth of AI agents. Think about an AI entity that's able to schedule a meeting for you, or book a flight, or secure a restaurant reservation. Just the tip of the spear of what it can mean for individual consumers. But we're also going to see transformation in industries. We talked about healthcare and the ability to reduce clinician burnout, improve diagnoses, come up with new drugs. Like the applications are massive. It's also true for financial services as we think about how do you provide better, more personalized advice? How do you reduce fraud? How do you provide better service? Um, so, in both spheres, huge opportunities, but I would really just bring us back to we can use AI to solve pressing societal challenges. If we can use it to help tackle climate change, if we can use it to improve global health, to provide more personalized education, I mean, these to me are the benefits and what we should all really be channeling our resources and energy towards.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Elizabeth. I mean, the opportunities are almost boundless, aren't they? And with careful regulation and guidance from experts in government and regulators, then great things are being achieved. So thank you very, very much for joining us at RAID. I hope you'll be able to come and join us face to face again in Brussels at the Stanhope Hotel on the 23rd and 24th of September. Thank you so much for your time and expertise.
Thanks so
Great
much
to
for
see you again.
having me.